It's time to pull those belts tight, race fans. The front stretch is coming at you, presented by Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs. Now, here's Dan Taylor and Dirk Houston.
Well, good morning to you, race fans, and welcome to the front stretch, presented by Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs, online at joeskarting.com. Fast-paced white-knuckle racing just across the river on 23rd Avenue. Get over to Joe's today and do yourself right. Let's see. Today's show, we have the recap for Pocono coming up here in turn number 1, along with some silly season news and notes. We should disclaim, and we'll continue to talk about this throughout the show. We pre-recorded on Wednesday, and silly season is in full swing right now. Over the last couple of weeks, it's been hot and heavy, so things are going to change before this airs on Sunday, so just bear with us. We're going to get you up to date with everything that we know as far as Wednesday afternoon is concerned. We'll also talk about the 77 penalties and NASCAR's change on Wednesday afternoon to move the start-finish line, to move the overtime line to the start-finish line effective immediately. That includes today's race at Watkins Glen.
So tomorrow when Danica Patrick signs to be in the 5 car for Rick Hendrick for 27 years,
right?
We didn't know that today, right?
Exactly. And when Carl Edwards makes his triumphant return to, BK Racing, fill in for Greg Gaulding, who knows where.
41 car.
But he's coming back. Don't worry, everybody. The conspiracy theorists are always right. Facts don't mean a thing. Carl stood there and told us all he's not coming back to racing.
The car 157 with RCR Racing.
Yeah. So again, Pocono recap, silly season news and notes, and penalties from Pocono coming up in turn number 1. Turn number 2, we're going to talk with Code Red, Cody Ledger, driver of the 35L 360 sprint car and the 47 Race Saver 305 sprint car. Turn number 3, we will talk with the Kentucky Colonel, Steve Francis. We sat down with him at the Silver Dollar Nationals, the day of the Silver Dollar Nationals finale, and talked to him about a lot of different things. Some great information out of Steve, so we'll play that interview in turn number 3. And then in turn number 4, we will cover a few of the final bits and pieces that we missed out on throughout the show. We'll also talk about Watkins Glen, what you could be looking for today, and preview next weekend's show, which we're going to be live from Knoxville for the wrap-up show for the Knoxville Nationals in the 410 series. So, top 10 at Pocono. 10th was Chase Elliott. 9th, Matt Kenseth. 8th, Eric Jones. 7th, Daniel Suarez. Clint Boyer rounds out your 6th spot. Peeking into your top 5, Brad Keselowski. Denny Hamlin 4th. Martin Truex Jr. 3rd. Kevin Harvick 2nd. And Kyle Busch gets the win. Started on the pole. Led a lot of laps. I think he led 74 of the laps. He wins stage 1. Doesn't finish in the top 10 in stage number 2, but ends up getting the race win. So he walks away with, I believe, 6 playoff points for the day. 1 for winning the stage and stage 1, and then another win for winning another 5 for winning the race.
And then 50 points as far as for the race championship points, 10 and 40.
You're probably right. My screen just went blank, so we're just going to say you're right. All right, rough days for Eric Almirola, involved in an accident really early. Jimmy Johnson, what was his? He blew a tire, and I believe Casey Kane got into him underneath. He was slowing way down, and Casey
got
Kane
out of it.
Yeah.
Casey really had no place to go, and then they got together and
backed into a wall. He was done for the day. Kyle Larson finished 33rd. By the way, Jimmy Johnson 35th. Kyle Larson 33rd. Joey Logano. Boy, Joey Logano. I mean, I don't see any sign that this guy's going to win any races anytime soon, and all of a sudden jump up into the top 15 and get in there.
I think it's got something to do with that encumbered win. It's like karma's just come out and just destroyed his season.
We've seen this, and you've seen this about 1,000 times in racing. When tech officials or if somebody finds that a car is a little bit too far in the gray area, or even deemed illegal, that was something new that team found, and they were banking off of it for the last who knows how long. And then when officials find it and they say, no, that's illegal, it sets that team back quite a ways.
That's exactly what happens, and happened this week too.
Yeah.
I mean,
with the 77, pretty much like you talked, we'll get to it in a little bit, but like you talked about, with pretty much the same penalty.
Yeah, it's the explanation the same, what they pulled out of the rule book, so it's got to be something right along the same thing. If it's exactly the same or maybe just a little bit different, but it is the same penalty.
So again, the 22 of Joey Logano finishes 27th. Also running down the order of rough finishers, Austin Dillon 21st.
You missed the 30th guy.
Ryan Blaney, yeah. Blaney had a good run going last time we were at Pocono, but a late race wreck relegated him to a back finish, and Same thing happened here. I had Jamie McMurray in the Pick'ems contest, and
I had Ryan Blaney.
I felt very good. Oh, good. I finished in front of you. I felt very good about my pick. I thought Jamie's pretty darn good at Pocono. He's been coming on strong lately. The Chip Ganassi Racing team's been strong lately. I'm going to go with Jamie again, and he bit me this week, only getting 16 points. So I think now I'm 5 weeks in a row with a bad finish, and I've dropped from top 15 to outside the top 35. So I've free fallen these last. And by the way, anybody that was behind me 5 weeks ago, you can go ahead and just write me a thank you note for letting you get into the playoff system. But just a side note, Dirk, Chad, and I can't be in the playoff system. So even if we do finish in the top 15, we're not going into the playoffs with the rest of the contestants. We'll move up 16th or 17th and so on. All right, penalties. Let's talk about the silly season just a little bit.
It's just a bad week for Ganassi, losing Target too.
Yeah, no kidding.
All a bad week.
Chip Ganassi Racing announced earlier this week that Target was not going to be returning in 2018. They're going to be departing the team completely. So that's a big loss for Kyle Larson and that 42 team. And Dirk, we've talked about it a lot. Performance can be there, but if the sponsorship dollars aren't, that really puts a ride in jeopardy.
Well, that's it's a big deal, and it's been public knowledge that Target's having some money, and the stock's down and everything else. Back to the Ganassi part, the article I read said they're pulling out completely, which leaves his IndyCar team with nothing.
Yeah, that's what I saw too. I hadn't read the full article on it, but they said they were pulling out of Chip Ganassi Racing completely, and I assumed that meant their IndyCar series also. And those brick and mortar stores, they're just kind of the one thing of like the Blockbusters at one point in time. Something new came in, and they're just turning into empty building space with online shopping being so much cheaper. And I mean, like I did, I've talked about a couple of times. I used to go to Target 2 or 3 times a week a couple of years ago. Once I got my Amazon.com account, I go maybe once every 2 or 3 months. I mean, it's completely curtailed. I mean, I used to spend hundreds of dollars a month at Target on just everything that I could possibly need for my house. Now I order it on Amazon. I
can't think of the last time I was personally in a Target store. I don't shop there.
Yeah.
I don't have any reason to.
So big loss for Chip Ganassi and the 42 team. Moving on to the silly season notes. This is kind of an interesting one. And Dirk, your text message conversation that we had when this news was coming out kind of put it into perspective a little bit for me. So there was leaked information that Kurt Busch was notified by Stewart-Haas Racing that they would not be exercising the option for 2018 for his contract, and the leaked information came from a insider inside Stewart-Haas Racing
that had to remain anonymous.
That spoke on the condition of anonymity, because they were not privileged for this information. They were not supposed to be giving out this information. So it was kind of spread out there. And then Stewart-Haas Racing came out and said on their Twitter page, we do not comment on contract negotiations, but we expect Kurt Busch back in our Haas Automation Monster number 41.
And we've got 6 hours to sign him up, or whatever, right. 8 hours.
So the deal was, according to the leaked report, was that they had until midnight Monday night to re-sign, or was it Tuesday night? They had midnight Tuesday night to re-sign Kurt Busch to that 2018 contract. And they have apparently, if the news story is right, and by the way, I think both articles are correct. I think both stories are correct. One doesn't dispel the other one. I think it just turns the story just a little bit. They didn't exercise the option for 2018, which you said that doesn't mean they're not going to re-sign him.
Correct. It doesn't mean that they can't give him another 3-year contract today, tomorrow, next week.
Yeah.
As long as it's before the Daytona 500. Even then, they could give him a 1-race contract as far as that goes, for Daytona. You don't see that happening because of the sponsor deals and everything. Sponsors want to know what's going on, who's in the seat, et cetera, et cetera. But I don't expect them to re-sign him. I kind of see that guy driving that 00 Xfinity car, whose dad's a bigwig with the company, being in that car, and maybe the 10 car going away.
So we, being at Iowa Speedway, we heard a couple of different stories that kind of went around, and one of them was that Stewart-Haas Racing is anticipating dropping down to 3 cars for 2018 and just being a 3-car operation. Everyone kind of expects Danica Patrick's not coming back. That's what we keep hearing through industry insiders. It's what we keep hearing through news reports. It's all this stuff is happening that Danica Patrick's not coming back. I think that this story with Kurt Busch and the 41 is just simply that they have decided to not pick up his current contract and that they're in the process of renegotiating it. Whether that means they have to renegotiate to pay him a little bit less because they have a new sponsor that's paying them a little bit less, or if they're saying, you know what, let's just not do a one-year deal and in 6-8 months we got to go through this again. Let's just do a new contract. So we're not going to exercise your option for 2018. Let's start the negotiations for a longer contract. We'll sign you through 2020, 2021, whatever it be. I think that's the case that's going on. All right, so that's what's going on with the 41. Basically, we don't know what's going on, but we've tried to keep you up to date with the latest that's happening. And knowing our luck, they're going to sign a contract on Saturday, and they're going to announce it Saturday afternoon at Watkins Glen, and all this will air, and it'll be for naught.
But Brad Keselowski is still with Penske. We can say that.
We can say that. All right, penalties from Pocono. The number 77 car of Eric Jones at Furniture Row Racing was found to have, okay, I'm not going to bore you with it. His car was illegal. Dirk, can you put it into some layman's terms for us dum-dums?
Yeah, there was basically a little bit of space in between one end of the spacer. The spacer is a flat piece between the trailing arm and the rear end, and it is supposed to remain in contact with both the rear end and the trailing arm at all times, but there was a gap on one end or the other, which tweaked it a little bit. Same thing Joey Logano got caught with a couple months back.
As a result, the 77's 8th place finish was encumbered. And what does that mean? That means he got the points, he got the credit for finishing 8th, but he doesn't get to carry that into the playoffs if that 8th place finish, being a top 10 finish, is a tie-breaking decider. So if he's tied for the most amount of top 5s and the most amount of top 10s with the other guy that he's tied with in the points, then because he has that encumbered 8th place finish, Eric Jones now loses the tiebreaker. That's all that means. He also lost 25 championship driver points and 25 owner points. Crew chief Chris Gale was fined $50,000 and suspended for the next 2 Monster Energy Cup Series championship points-paying events. That happens to be today at Watkins Glen and next week at Michigan. No word on Wednesday afternoon if Furniture Row had decided to appeal the penalty or not.
Well, the point steal also, like you were mentioning, if that 8th place finish counts in his top 10s, if the other guy's got 8 or if the other guy's got 7 and Eric has 8, but the 1 doesn't count, then he is tied with him again. They go to another tiebreaker.
Okay.
So,
yeah,
they don't have to be both tied at 8, and then he loses because of that.
Right. It's not like if it comes down to something, then he ends up losing it. He loses it. You're right. He got the money. Mm-hmm. He got the points less his 25-point fine? Correct.
25 points. So, yeah, he got, I think, 8th place. Pays like 29, so he got like 4 or 5 points is all, plus whatever he got in stage racing.
Eric walked away with 29 points on Sunday, so yeah, he ended up getting 4 points after all that was said and done. Anybody that took the 77 during the season-long contest will also face those penalties. They will be hit with a $50,000 fine. You can pay that to Dan Taylor. Or Dirk, do you want this one, or
can we do just D&D radio or something?
Okay, Front Stretch Radio. We appreciate the donation. We'll go ahead and we'll take it. And
we're trying to do great things with this show here.
We're trying to move the world. But no, you'll get hit with the 25-point penalty on the Pick'ems contest too. So there is just 3 spots remaining in the playoffs for drivers to qualify via the points.
Or win.
And not win. Just I'm saying there's just 3 spots left via only the points. If you're right. If Chase Elliott, Jamie McMurray, one of these guys were to get a win, then it would reduce it down to 2. Right now, Chase Elliott is 39 points to the good. Jamie McMurray is 38 points to the good. Matt Kenseth is 17 points to the good. Clint Boyer is 17 points behind the cutoff, so he would be the first car eliminated. Joey Logano is 69 points behind. He has that win. Again, it's encumbered, so it's not qualifying him for the playoffs. 69 points is a lot to go with 5 races.
I mean, we've seen it in our fantasy league. We saw 51-point swings, or 54-point swings, actually.
Yeah.
So
in a couple of races, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a possibility. If you're within 50 points with this many races to go, you still got a shot.
Yeah, Joey Logano 69 points behind. Daniel Suarez is now the next person 130 points behind, with Eric Jones now being 150 points behind. So he with that penalty, he's pushed himself a little ways back.
Well, and Suarez has said, and actually some of what he's saying has been pretty much true. When he comes back to a track the second time, he plans on running better, and he has been for the most part. So with Michigan coming up, let's see what he does.
Follow up on what I said earlier in the turn. Martin Truex Jr. has 29 playoff points. Jimmy Johnson has 16. Kyle Larson 13. Brad Keselowski 13. Kyle Busch, with his win, jumps up into fifth in the reseedings. He has 13 points also with one win. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. 10 points. Harvick, Blaney both 8 playoff points. Hamlin 7. Kurt Busch 5. Newman, Kane, and Dillon all have 5 playoff points.
Yeah, the 17, 2 race wins, but no stage wins. That's kind of out there.
Yeah. All right, we got to take a break. We'll come back in turn number 2. Code Red, Cody Ledger, will join us to talk about his 2017 season, plans for the rest of the season, and what trouble he's going to get into next. We'll be back here on the Front Stretch.
If you love wings, if you love rings, and all kinds of other tempting things, great times, great food, get to Quaker Steak and Lube.
Quaker Steak and Lube is the official watering hole for the Front Stretch and the best place to catch all the NASCAR action today. Open at 11 a.m. with delivery available to Council Bluffs.
Great times, great food, get to Quaker Steak and Lube.
Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs has taken a page out of IMCA's rulebook and gone crate. These brand new low-emission engines will still have you white-knuckling it all through the Metro's fastest indoor facility. Joe's Karting is now friendly for all skill levels with their brand new Honda-powered engines. It's time to get to Joe's today and find out what drivers like Jack Dover, Shaylee Bate, and Andrew Kosiski have known for years. Located in Council Bluffs and online at joeskarting.com. That's karting with a K.
We're hooked up in turn 2 and still showing the green flag on the front stretch.
Welcome back to the Front Stretch, heading into turn number 2. And time to talk to have a conversation with the driver of the, hold on, that's not right. In this corner, weighing in at, $175?
Oh, I wish.
215?
205.
205, wearing the orange trunks, sporting the 35 number. All right, so Cody Ledger, we're doing that because you got into a little bit of trouble last week. A couple weeks ago, actually. Before we get to the conversation about what happened at Jackson a couple of weeks ago, let's talk about your season. You had a really frustrating season to get things started.
Yeah, it started off with we got rained out at Wichita, and that wasn't a big deal for us. It was the following week we went to I-80, and we were starting middle of the pack of the heat race. We were fast. I mean, we had like the top 5 car right off the bat, and we started in the middle of the pack. We were maybe a lap and a half in. We got drove into. It was completely a head up butt move. It
Thanks for censoring that.
It junked a race car. It junked a motor. And then the following night, we got a car back together that night and got it fired. And they wouldn't let us run because we had a lap and a half completed, so we couldn't get the backup out and finish the night. We ended up the second night, and we started up front, or started in the middle of the pack and got together with a car that was moving away from a slower car and made contact and cut a right front tire down. We had to go to the B main. Started last in the B. We ended up in like 3 laps. We're in a transfer spot. We started like 15th. Then they took 4. We're running 4th or 3rd, and after a caution flag, we went to go green, and it just started stumbling, and we pulled in and realized that we had a fuel filter was all plugged up.
You guys had an issue with that a couple of times in the season, right?
Yeah, the first night we ended up, after we pulled the motor out, we realized that we had some fuel. We had some plugged nozzles and whatnot, and the second night, and it also happened to Jack the same weekend. Both nights he ended up having fuel issues with plugged nozzles.
And you guys go and get fuel from the same place, right?
Yep, Stat Brothers.
Yeah. Is there any way you could do that? Can you guys start filtering on your own? Can you get it? Can you get it from a more? I don't mean to talk bad about Stat Brothers. They've done well by you guys for quite a while, but there was a string there for about a month and a half where I heard several guys that got fuel at Stat Brothers had issues. Is there anything you can do? You can filter it on your own. You can.
When we dump fuel in, there's a little funnel we could put in there. Actually, we really think that's what was happening was certain fuel cells were deteriorating, and the bladders were causing the fuel issues. I mean, there was some instances where we had some fuel that had some cotton in it and whatnot, but nothing major enough to really hurt a motor or make an issue.
There is small steps you guys could take. Did you take them, or did you just kind of trust Stat Brothers that they're going to get their stuff kind of cleaned up a little bit?
The fuel that we had issues with was with the first. We ended up buying a 55-gallon drum right off the bat, and we got rid of that drum. We ended up buying 2 crates. I think they're like 125 gallons a piece, And we asked for brand new crates, never used. We watched them fill them. I mean, when we got there, when my dad picked them up, it still had saran wrap all around them. And ever since then, we've never had any issues with our fuel.
You're also racing with the 35L in the 360s. You're also racing the 47 this year in the 305s with Stan Caesar and running his car. More of a frustrating season in the 47 or the 35?
My 360 started off rough. We ended up having the last month and a half, 2 months, we've been running real good all the way up till I think the first time we ran at Knoxville this year, we ran a top 10, and before that, we haven't been outside the top 5 until the Jackson deal. And I think that was like
like 10 races in a row in the top 5.
Yeah, it was like a month streak where we was just straight top 5s. Then a few weeks ago, we did a 2-day deal, and that was with Jackson. We ended up winning the following night at Park Jeff. Then the following week, we had 3 days with the MSTS in our group, the Nebraska 360s, where we went second, and won the last night at Park Jeff also.
So the 360's gotten a lot better, but you guys have had engine issues and mechanical issues in that 305, and sounds like you may have gotten those things straightened out.
Yeah, hopefully. We ran the 305 a few weeks ago, I believe. I think 2 weeks ago, and it seems like it's running a little better. Now we just got to get feeling figured out on it, and get the car set up figured out.
So just kind of a driver thing. You got to get the feel of what a 305 is different, because I've heard a lot of people talk about how a 305 is momentum-based. You cannot scrub off any momentum because there's not that horsepower to pick it back up again.
Yeah, I mean, there is no horsepower for it, so like tire spin is minimal. I spun out actually the 305 twice this year, and that's more than I've ever spun my 360 out. You just don't have the horsepower to get yourself out of certain situations where like when a 360 or a 410, you had the horsepower to get yourself out of them.
Is it more equal the cars are more equal? Because that's kind of the goal, is to save money with that series, and that the cars are all pretty well equal.
For the most part, yeah. I mean, everything's pretty equal. You're only allowed to put certain engine parts in, so it really minimizes what the money part of it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the money part's getting up there. I mean, it went from supposedly $10,000 for a motor, now it's getting to $15,000-$20,000, which is no different than what our 360s cost. But you don't get the light and cranks, light and cams. You only get an A or B or C with those engine parts. So you don't, where like in a 360 you have, you can go out and adventure with whatever you want. If it works, it works.
What's the RPM difference between the two?
I think our 360, we try to run it right at 8,600, and in our 305 we're like 76 and 8,000.
Let's talk about the night at Jackson. I was sitting in the booth with Stan Caesar as he was watching the race monitor, and lap was going by, and you were hot that night. You were fast, is what I mean. You were hot later, but you were fast to start with.
Yeah, we had a good starting in the heat race. We started up front and checked out on that. Redrew the number 3 spot. We ended up starting third. The very first lap, did a slide job, and coming off of 2, we were in the lead. We were about a little less than halfway through, and with like a 1 point and almost a 2-second lead on second place. We're lapping cars, and I'm not gonna name any names or anything, but we went underneath the car to lap him, slid him, and he kind of crossed over on us. And I was on the outside of him. He was moving up onto me, into my line, so I backed off of it, got behind him, was going to go underneath of him, and he kind of just drove right over the top of us. Really left me with no place to go except hopefully we didn't get upside down. It did everything but get upside down. So
he came into you sliding up the track. Did he think maybe he was cleared of you?
I don't know what part he thought was cleared, because we were wheel to wheel before I backed off so he could take his line.
Darn spotters.
Yeah. What was your spotter doing in your ear? He was on break.
I was more wondering what his spotter was telling him.
The story I heard after the races were over with, crew goes down to kind of put your car away because you guys had made semi repairs, had a broken shock. You were able to finish the race.
Yeah, we finished the race. We ended up having I believe a flat left rear. Like I said, we did everything but flip. Those bouncing every which way. Had a flat left rear and had a broken shock bolt. We didn't catch the shock bolt until after the fact. We were getting ready to push off. If we had another yellow, we would have pulled back in and we had a shock bolt ready to go. We just didn't have the time.
So after the races are over with, everybody comes down. Crew comes down off their stands to kind of to wrap up for the night, put the car away, and head home. And you're nowhere to be found.
Yep.
You're having a conversation of sorts with said driver who remains nameless, and an altercation happens. And then everybody goes their ways. How many people were surprised that an altercation happened with you?
I'm pretty sure everyone that heard about it was.
That was my reaction when somebody said
when they asked who, they said Ledger. So which one? Cody. You sure it wasn't the dad? No, it was Cody.
Or the uncle?
Yeah. Or the uncles? It was Cody? Yeah.
That's what everyone says, is that for such a calm guy, they can't believe that there was an altercation between you and another driver. But everybody under their breath went, good for Cody. Because there is a little bit, I mean, you have to stand your ground. In as much as none of us like coming to fisticuffs and doing that stuff, I mean, I'm not a violent person, but if somebody pushes me far enough, I'll push back. And I think that's kind of where you were at.
Depending on how big they are.
It's like it's this kind of a thing. It kind of, to me, it felt like it started early in the season. We just kind of got walked on the first 2 nights, and we've been fast from since then on until now. We've been real good with our series.
Yeah.
And that was our. I mean, we felt like we had the race won, and from what everyone's told us, that there was no one going to touch us. And when for something stupid like that to happen, it just was a heat of the moment deal.
And at Jackson too, that's a big track for you to win at.
Yeah, I mean, I've won I-80, and my last 2 or 3 been at Jackson.
It's very important for a driver to assert themselves, as when that happens post race. I can almost guarantee that a lot of drivers are racing around you weeks later going, I need to respect him a little bit more. I can't push the limit with him. Maybe that driver wasn't thinking, I'm going to wreck him, but maybe they just weren't giving you the amount of respect that you're now getting, because you've now sent a message to the rest of the pits. I'm not this timid guy that's just going to let you push me around and wreck me if you need the spot. We're going to have words, and it's, because you kind of stood up for yourself.
Yeah.
I completely agree with Dennis Parker's fine and the Nebraska 360 Series fine, because after Dennis and I had several conversations about it, I think he was absolutely right in the stance of, as a series official and owner and director, he has to sanction against fighting. He can't have that. Fights in racing happen. And honestly, when they happen once in a while, it's good for the sport. But when they happen too much, it begins to be a sideshow. And so I think Dennis's goal with finding you was to make sure and send a message to all of the drivers, this won't be tolerated. Do you agree with that, or do you still?
I agree. I don't agree with the amount of the fine. I think a probation would have been much better. I mean,
first offense type
yeah,
deal.
it was a first offense thing for both series. I'm pretty sure I watched Kyle Busch throw haymakers on a driver in NASCAR. Not really care about it. You're talking NASCAR drivers who do this for a living, who've got the money to pay even a said $700 or $1,000 fine. Or we're just a local Nebraska series and a MSTS racing series for a $500 fine. That's, to me, I thought everyone thought that was kind of a hefty fine.
I never liked fining the local guys, because $500 for you guys is that's a tire, right?
Yep. Or
tire and a half, maybe 2. That's a couple of tanks of fuel. I mean, that's a hefty fine for the local guys that are just trying to get up and down the road, having fun on a regular basis. But it also, like I said, I think it was effective in the sense that it sent a message. And you're also on probation. Is that through the end of the year?
Yeah, that's for both series and Jackson through the end of the year.
Do you think that puts a target on your back? I talked about how with asserting yourself and kind of fighting back a little bit, that you set a new level of respect. But do you think it kind of puts a target on your back that people can push you around because you're on probation?
I don't think so. I don't think at all. I think I will race everyone the way they race me. If they want to race me dirty, I don't have a problem racing them dirty back. Even with some of the bigger, more popular drivers. I mean, Terry McCarl, I raced him hard. Last week, 2 weeks ago at I-80, and he gave me room, I gave him room, and he came over, congratulated me on a hell of a run.
You didn't get the win, but I got to feel like that race was a huge confidence booster for you, because I think you had the better car. You were just outwitted by a veteran driver. The comments that he gave in Victory Lane, in interviews all the rest of that week, doing press releases, I mean, he gave you a lot of credit for your race.
Yeah, that's what I heard. I mean, I've always heard of Terry McCarl. He could be I'll say he could be an asshole, but for him to give me those compliments as he did, it was actually really honoring, coming from such a veteran and such a what I said on Facebook from Sioux Center, probably one of the best drivers in the Midwest.
He is. He's absolutely one of the best and highly talented. And I just thought that with all the good things he had to say, that was a huge ringing endorsement and probably a big confidence booster for you that you're on the right track, that you're definitely making progress in this series.
Yeah, it felt real good.
Talking about making progress, going to Knoxville. You were at Knoxville this weekend, actually, for the 360 Nationals. If you want to see that, by the way, head over to our Facebook page. We'll post where Cody finished and where the Nebraska 360 guys finished. I know there's a couple of you guys that were headed over this weekend racing. Can you even begin to fathom what that would be like to win that race for you?
Hell, to win, I just like to start the AMA on Saturday night.
All right, one step at a time. Let's try to knock down 2 of those steps at one night. But that happened this weekend at Knoxville. Again, go over to our Front Stretch Facebook page or check them out, Cody Ledger Racing.
Yep.
What about for the rest of the season? What's your plans?
We have this weekend, we're at, like I said, at Knoxville Nationals, and we're taking next week off. We'll be spectating for the 410 Nationals. I don't think we get back into 360 till like August 25th, maybe, for the Speedy Bill Memorial, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Then I think the following week we got the 305 Nationals, the first weekend of September. And I'm not really 100% sure what the schedule looks like for the rest of the year, but if we keep going like we have been, I'm sure we'll add a few more races.
Do you have a set schedule that you go for at the beginning of the year, or is it kind of like, all right, it's Monday morning, we had a good weekend, let's see what races are this week and how much they're paying?
We are 100% loyal, and we will run all 100% of the Nebraska 360 races. Then right now we're hitting a lot of the MSTS races also. Next year we'll run both series as long as they don't interact with each other. So whenever there's a Nebraska 360 series, we'll run our series. Then if we're not racing and the MSTSs, we'll go up there and support them. Then when those two aren't racing, I think we'll probably head down and run with the NCRA a little more and maybe the ASCS Warriors.
All right, Cody Ledger in the 35L for the Nebraska 360s and the 47 for the 305s. When are we going to talk about you racing a 410?
Maybe next year.
Oh, no kidding.
Yep.
All right.
It won't be many races. It'll just be a handful, but there's something in the works.
All right. Good man. If you'd like to sponsor Cody, he will come do appearances for you. He'll come take care of he's a good guy. Don't let that earlier conversation get to you.
He'll even fight you for it.
Just don't run him off the road, and you won't have an issue with him. But you can get a hold of him, Cody Ledger Racing, on Facebook. All right, man. Congratulations on the season. I know it's been a good one for you so far. Hopefully you have a good luck this weekend at Knoxville, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you.
We'll be back in turn number 3 to talk to Steve Francis, the Kentucky Colonel. We'll play that interview from the Silver Dollar Nationals. We'll be back here on the Front Stretch.
Are you looking to book your next outing? Look no further than Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs. Located just north of Bass Pro Shop, Joe's Karting can handle outings of well over 100-plus people. Bachelor parties, corporate outings, team building, birthday parties, and much more. Give Buddy a call today and reserve your outing. Joe's will even work with local restaurants to cater your event. Book yours today at joeskarting.com. That's karting with a K. It's time to get to Joe's and find out what everyone already knows.
This week's young gun on the Front Stretch is 16-year-old Jacob Hobscheit, known as the Little Hooterville Hustler. Jacob has grown up around racing, watching his dad and uncles. At the age of 5, Jacob started his racing career turning laps in a go-kart where he won a track championship in the Junior 2 class. In 2012, he decided to leave kart racing and try his hand at a Sportmon, where he's competed for 4 years, winning 5 races, including the opening night of the Silver Dollar Nationals in 2016. He also won postseason awards like Rookie of the Year at Jackson Motorplex Speedway and Most Improved Driver of the Year at I-80 Speedway. This year, Jacob decided to move into the Amont class and compete weekly at I-80 Speedway and Adams County Speedway, where he currently sits 3rd in the season point standings at both tracks. Next time you're at a dirt track, keep your eye out for the 01 N&W Transfer Hobscheit Henry Pro Chrysler Truckers Accounting Service Amont, driven by the Little Hooterville Hustler, Jacob Hobscheit. This week's Young Gun has been brought to you by NASCAR home track I-80 Speedway.
I-80 Speedway is your home for NASCAR. Before you see them compete on Sunday, come see them make their name each Friday night with NASCAR weekly racing action. See the Midwest's best modified late model stock car and sport compact drivers compete at Nebraska's premier dirt track, located just down the road on Interstate 80 at exit 420. This Friday night is Kids Obstacle Course Run. Grandstands open at 5, hot laps at 6:30 with racing at 7:15. I-80Speedway.com for more information.
Feather the brake and get back to the gas. Dan and Dirk are headed into turn 3 on the Front Stretch.
Welcome back to the Front Stretch, heading into turn number 3. A couple of weeks ago, I had the opportunity to sit down with the Kentucky Colonel, Steve Francis, while at the Silver Dollar Nationals, and I talked to him on Saturday. I started off the conversation by asking him his thoughts on double heat qualifying.
It's okay at a racetrack like this where it's real racy, and you can choose different lanes, stuff like that. Had it become one lane top dominant or one lane bottom dominant, probably wouldn't have been much fun for anybody. I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of this format, because we are running extra laps on your race car and on your motor, and you're taking extra chances of things happening. But at least out here, they pay you for it. You get paid for the heat. First, second, and third get paid in the heat races. So, that makes it less hard to complain about it.
I heard something interesting. When you were doing the Facebook Live with the I-80 Speedway guys, you'd said that you figure it costs about $7 to $10 per lap to run one of these Lucas Oil cars.
Yeah, that's real close. I mean, that's motor wear, tire wear, things like that. Fuel, that doesn't necessarily count if you crash a car or break a motor. That's just a good close average of what it cost.
You've got an 80-lap feature tonight, so you got to figure on the high end that race is going to cost you somewhere around $800 to run the whole race.
Yeah, and that's probably a conservative number for 80 laps here, because it is a big fast racetrack. It's kind of hard on your motor. You're going to hurt a couple of tires anyway, so you're looking at $165 a piece for the two to three tires, and then you're looking at $7 a lap on your motor. You're looking at fuel, you're looking at pit passes, you're looking at entry fees. You figured all that stuff. That's just laps on. That's the car on the racetrack. So, it's definitely an expensive sport.
Yeah, that's an understatement, and I don't think you could ever find the words to properly express how expensive it is. Is there anything that you've talked to the Lucas Oil guys about, or talked to other competitors about trying to do something to rein in the cost of the sport? Because that's, as far as I can tell back, only being part of the sport for as long as I have, which isn't long at all, cost has always been an issue, but it just keeps getting worse rather than staying the same or getting a little better.
It does, and some of our purses have went up, some of them have not. Some of them pay more to win now, but where it's really starting to hurt at is, the local regional competitor, that wants to run here every Saturday night or something like that. That's where that's starting to hurt at. I think they've done some stuff out here with some different motor rules and things like that to help rein that in. But, 6, 7, 8 years ago when the first wide bore center engines started coming in, they're an extra $5,000 for a motor. We ought to outlaw them. Well, nothing ever happened, and next thing you know, everybody's got one, and that eliminated 10 guys from racing because that's just $5,000 more that they got to have. We talked about all the lips and valances and everything on the noses and the way the bodies have gotten so skewed on the car and everything like that. And, we ought to rein all that in. We ought to rein all that in. Well, nobody never did, and we still got all that stuff. And the more of that stuff, in my opinion, I'd like to see them go back to 36-inch rear deck height, no lips, no valances on the front nose, make you run a standard 350-pound right front spring. Conventional, you get it from the like a spec right front spring that you have to run, and then you kind of eliminate a lot of this bump stop stacking springs. You're still going to have some stuff going on in the left rear and things, the right rear, but if you got that right front corner, which seems to be the most important corner in these cars, if you could get it blocked up where that you knew you couldn't get it too low, then that would help our sport a lot.
Where's the line with some of these guys that are experimenting with gray areas, and you come across it? Do you say something to the sanctioning body and kind of say, hey, that's not right what they're doing? They're playing in an area that's a little too closer to the illegal than the legal in the gray area, or do you emulate it to keep up?
You emulate it to keep up because that's an advantage the other guys don't have. I mean, I think everybody in this pit area, we all know each other. We kind of have a general idea of, you can walk by a guy's car and look at his deck height. You don't even have to look at too much. Anytime a guy starts becoming very, very dominant, you better start looking at his car pretty close, because these cars are all, they're all tubing, shock springs, same tires. We all have good engines now. If a guy wins 6 races in a row or 7 races in a row, you need to really look at his car and really look at a lot of things, because it's too hard to win that many races in a row right now. I don't care, what program you got, how much money you got, or whatever. It's still hard to have that much luck go your way, for one thing. So, you have to have an advantage somewhere. Now, whether you figured that out with, a shock and spring combination or whatever, or whether you're doing something like you said in the gray areas, is two different things. But it's the official's job to look at that gray area and say, hey, that ain't there. I think they're supposed to introduce a shock. Like if a new shock comes out, I think they're supposed to show it to the series now, trying to rein that cost in where we ain't running $5,000 shocks and stuff like that on the cars. But there's just if you're not a shock engineer, it's hard you can't look at the outside of that shock and see it and say, well, that's wrong. And most competitors don't want a series official don't dyno in their shock or looking at their spring curve or something like that because, well, he might tell somebody about it. I mean, the Lucas Oil guys have enough integrity. I don't think they do that. But, that persona could be out there. Well, you took my information and gave it to somebody else. I don't really think that goes on. I think the Lucas guys are too straight up. But it could go on in some regional, local series. Hey, my best buddy is the official at Joe Blow's Racing Series, and he said Scott's got 3 right rear stack springs in his car, and this is the rates of them or something. That stuff could get out there, and that's not good for the sport either.
Well, and series officials could decide to leak that information if they're tired of a guy winning. Because let's face it, when somebody dominates a series, the appeal for the fans goes away.
Well, yeah, I mean, a couple of years ago, Kevin Rumley and Jonathan Davenport had that deal with that device in the left rear that was completely legal by the rules at that time, and basically changed the bar of our racing and what we have to do now. I mean, used to you worked on your race car all the time and looked at your race car and you crawled it under it and you had it on scales. Now you don't ever even put your car on the scales. You got spring smashers and shock dynos and computer simulators and things like that tell you what it's all supposed to be.
Let's talk a little bit about I-80 and the Silver Dollar Nationals. The Kaziskis are working hard to make this a crown jewel event, and every time it comes up, people talk about it. I'm not sure it's there yet because I kind of feel like in order to be a crown jewel event, you got to have history behind it. And we're only at the 7th annual, but it feels like they're on their way.
Well, yeah, I mean, it pays $53,000 to win. That's the second most you can win at a Lucas Oil race this year. So, that in itself kind of makes it a crown jewel. And what helps with me making it that way is it's not a Dolly Parton crown jewel. It's not $53,000 to win, $5,000 for second. It's 53, 20, 10, 75 or something like that. And then, I think 10th is still like $4,000 or something. So that means everybody's making a little bit of money. And what these promoters have got to figure out is, I understand $100,000 to win or $80,000 to win or $50,000 to win puts people in the stands. But why don't they advertise total purse $220,000? Don't necessarily say what you're winning and pay everybody some money so that we can all keep coming. If this thing paid $53,000 to win and the guy that run 10th got $1,000, it makes it hard for him to come back here. But if he gets $4,000, hey, that wasn't a bad weekend. We made $4,000 this weekend. We can afford to come back. We've sat and talked about the cost a minute ago in this thing, and everybody in this pit area has those same costs. So by paying that Dolly Parton deal, you only make one guy happy, and you make everybody else aggravated. I would much rather see them races pay. I mean, I'm glad that they did this deal, but I would still like to see this thing pay 40, 25, 15, 10, something like that, other than I would the 53, 20, 10. Let's make it pay $2,000 to start, $2,500 to start. Let's make everybody in the pit area make a little bit of money so we can keep coming back. I mean, the monster trucks, I think everybody that shows up to them, I don't think it pays anything more to win than what it does to show up. But all them guys are making money, and they make some extra money on their souvenir stuff by winning and stuff. Now, I'm not saying we need to get to that, but that's how you keep your series strong and make sure you've got 50, 60, 70 cars at all your events is everybody has to make a little bit of money to survive.
We're talking with Steve Francis, the Kentucky Colonel. Let's talk about your career and things you still have yet you want to accomplish before you feel like you've done it all in your career.
Well, I haven't won the Show Me. I haven't won this race. I haven't won the Dream. I haven't won the Lucas Oil Championship. I've won the Have a Tampa Championship, or not the Have a Tampa, the Stars Championships, the World of Outlaws Championships, the Big Johnson thing. But there's a few. I would love to win this championship. What a lot of people don't realize is in December, my wife and I, we had no race team. We were just starting to build a complete race team. So to go from there to where we are now has been quite an improvement, quite an accomplishment. And we've had a lot of help with the guys from Penske's, Jack Cornett, the guys at Capital. Those people have all put a lot in, and a lot of people around home, Todd Bailey, a friend of mine from Australia, came over. He's going to spend about 6 months with us, working with us all summer, and then he bought a capital car to take back to Australia. Mike Reisel's a guy that retired from GM that helps me. There's, Doug and Mason and a bunch of them guys around home that just, come over and help out a couple hours every once in a while in the evening and stuff like that. And it's taken all that to get it going. I'm not going to sit here and say we're ready to contend for a championship, and we kind of knew that going in, that this was a year or two process to do that.
It's crazy to think that because, yeah, you guys were behind the ball when you were putting this thing together in December, but your first race is a couple of months down the line, and when I look at it on the surface, I think, well, these guys can build a car in a couple of months. They can put tires, fill the trailer full of tires. They can spend all that money to get this stuff together. The tricky part is tweaking on the car and aligning everything to where it fits your driving style.
Yeah, it's that notebook. It's making that notebook that, okay, this worked here, and Capital, we had a notebook to start with. Shane Clanton was open with his notebook to me, whatever I wanted to know. But the problem was we were on that Lucas tire, which is an ungrooved, unsopped right rear tire, and he's on an open competition tire, which makes a difference in things. You have to make your car do a couple things a little bit different for that. And also in that thing, it seems like everything changes every year or two, and like Shane is not even running some of the stuff he was running 2 or 3 years ago. Those things change. They evolve every year or two. 2 years ago, Rocket was down. Right now, they're up. 2 years ago, Capital was the top car, Capital or Black Diamond. They both kind of had off years last year. Now they're kind of coming back. Everything goes in a cycle in this sport, and it seems like what you did. It seems like when you hit a setup that's really, really good, you better take advantage of it for that 6 months to a year, because you're going to have to tweak on it, change something on it. Whether they change the tire construction, whether they change the shock rule, whether somebody comes out with a new shock or a better mousetrap, so to speak. That all changes that notebook, and you have to keep up. It seems like testing's gotten big. Like I said, I used to love working on my race cars and staying, laying there and under the race car and changing a spring and looking at it. And I'm not as big a fan of standing in front of a computer and letting the computer tell me what's supposed to be right and what should be good and what should be bad. But that's kind of where the sport's gone to.
Let's talk. One of the questions we love to ask our drivers, and I think it gives a good sense of where we can take the sport to continue to grow it. If you were the god of racing and you could change anything about racing, and I use the term the god of racing because God can change anything regardless of the rules of physics and the laws of nature. So if there's anything you could change about racing whatsoever, what would it be that would make something a little more comfortable for you?
I don't know about me, but I look at the betterment of the sport, and there's 4 or 5 things. If you could go back in history and change, if you could back up 8 years, you would do away with all these lips and valances and everything on these race cars. You wouldn't have that. You would have kept the bodies more in control, not getting skewed. These things are so crooked on the trailers now. You can't put them in the trailer without taking the body braces off of them. I can remember when they rolled right in there. You get 2 cars in a 34-foot trailer. Now you can't get 2 cars in a 40-foot trailer. That kind of tells you how much bigger the cars have gotten. I would do away with all that. I'd do away with the wide bore center motors, and I would figure out some way to make a standard right front spring, or I would try to do away with the bump stop stack spring combination stuff. I think that puts everybody back in the ballpark. Your local regional guy can still compete because it's all about information now.
That's going to do it for turn number 3. We'll be back in turn 4 to wrap this baby up on the front stretch.
I-80 Speedway is your home for NASCAR. Before you see them compete on Sunday, come see them make their name each Friday night with NASCAR weekly racing action. See the Midwest's best modified late model stock car and sport compact drivers compete at Nebraska's premier dirt track. Located just down the road on Interstate 80 at exit 420. This Friday night is Kids Obstacle Course Run. Grandstands open at 5, hot laps at 6:30 with racing at 7:15. I-80Speedway.com for more information.
Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs has taken a page out of IMCA's rulebook and gone crate. These brand new low-emission engines will still have you white-knuckling it all through the Metro's fastest indoor facility. Joe's Karting is now friendly for all skill levels with their brand new Honda-powered engines. It's time to get to Joe's today and find out what drivers like Jack Dover, Shaylee Bate, and Andrew Kosiski have known for years. Located in Council Bluffs and online at joeskarting.com. That's karting with a K.
Checkers or wreckers as we enter turn 4 on on the Front Stretch, presented by Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs.
Welcome back to the Front Stretch, heading into turn number 4. Just about ready to wrap this baby up. Turn 4 brought to you by the official watering hole of the Front Stretch. Qualifying is set to kick off today for Watkins Glen at 10 a.m. Quaker Steak opens up at 11, so you can head over there and enjoy some beers and wings before the race. Coverage starts on NBCSN and MRN at 1 o'clock with the green flag just after 2 p.m. All picks for today's Pick'ems contest are due by 2 p.m. today. Don't delay, don't push the envelope, because I could have done the math wrong again. Make sure you get it in on time or your pick does not count. If you have any questions or you have any concerns that your pick did not get counted, you can email it to frontstretchradio@gmail.com. And as long as it is, I have it before the green flag waves, then I'll manually put your pick in for you. Couple of notes for today. Iowa's native Brett Moffitt set to drive the 83 for BK Racing, and Regan Smith is on call for the 11 team as Denny Hamlin could possibly be welcoming his first child into. Wait, is that first or second?
Second.
Okay. His wife is expecting this weekend, so it may have already happened. The news would have probably broke, but if you've been living under a rock or hanging out at a dirt track and not paying attention to the world of NASCAR, then you're hearing it now. Regan Smith could be filling in for the 11, and the way that simply works on the Pick'ems contest, you'll still get the points that the 11 car gets wherever he finishes. But being it not Denny Hamlin, who's a pretty good road course racer, and being it Regan Smith, who's not as experienced in the Cup Series, maybe you want to save that pick.
Well,
I believe that does count towards your Denny Hamlin picks also.
Correct.
So that you'll want to make sure for the old contest we didn't count it towards that pick, but I think they do count it in this online contest. So Watkins Glen today, I love these road courses. Watkins Glen always proves to be a great race, and I think the best thing about the road courses is that there's 11 turns at Watkins Glen.
I believe it's 11.
So there's about 11 different opportunities for somebody to bump and run.
Well, no, because some of the spots, like when you go through the S's and stuff, you're not going to bump and run there. But
I've played NASCAR Heat Evolution, and I've bumped and run on every 11 corners.
You bump and run on the straightaway. So
I've bumped and run on I-80, on Interstate 80 before.
There's actually only 3 or 4 spots to pass to where you can try and outbrake somebody, and then when they come into the home stretch there, if it is 11 courses, then turn 11. A lot of times they'll try and back it up and dive underneath somebody and then drag race them down to turn 1.
Have we raced on the new surface yet, or was that the off season this year that they repaved it?
I believe it was this year was the off season.
So it's going to be a new surface for the teams to go on, which is going to add for more grip, which is going to add a little bit more speed at certain places, and it's going to add for a little more excitement as they're able to push cars out of the way. It'll be interesting to see this.
They've got the new guidelines for Cup racers dropping down to Xfinity and Truck Series. So Kyle Busch has said if he can't drive his own truck, that he's just going to dump his Truck Series. And the bad part is, or drop his Truck Series teams. He's got 4 trucks. If they drop those 4 trucks, they're not filling their 32 truck fields at times now anyway.
Yeah.
That series will really be in trouble.
Well, I mean, we've talked about this quite a few times. This is it's not the Cup Series driver rule. This is the Kyle Busch rule. The fans have made such a fuss every time Kyle Busch wins an Xfinity race that NASCAR was basically forced to start implementing this restricted policy.
Well, no, see, I honestly think that NASCAR needs a different pay structure, different purse structure. One of the big complaints about this is the lower series teams. You know, these Cup drivers are coming and cherry picking and, getting 5 or 6 of the top spots and taking all the money out of the series. Mm-hmm. They ought to make the Cup guys run, and they get, let's say, 50%. They win the race, the purse is cut in 50%, and that 50% gets spread back in the field a little bit. Because the Cup guys say it's not about the money. Guys like Kyle Busch, it's an ego thing.
Yeah.
He don't care if he gets 200 wins across 3 series. If he gets 200 big NASCAR wins, in the top 3 series, and can be up there with the king.
Well, and you feel bad for Kyle because, like you just said, the guy just wants to race.
Exactly.
And he's a good driver. And Kyle Larson even came out earlier this week and said, that's a shame because I don't think I'd be up in Cup if I didn't spend 2-3 years following guys like Kyle and Brad and Joey and learning what they were doing because they beat him down in the Xfinity Series, and then eventually he was able to hold them off and win races in the Xfinity Series, and he brought that up into the Cup Series when he came up into the Cup, and he's done the same thing. First couple of years he was in the Cup, he kept getting beat by those guys, and then he eventually figured out where they were putting their lines, where they were running, and he figured it out. It's really important for these guys in the Truck Series, in the Cup Series, to be able to go and learn from the Cup Series guys.
And you don't hear the drivers complaining. I mean, there's times
Absolutely.
they complain if they run second and it was a high-dollar race, and maybe the points, they really could have used. You might hear them say something. But 9 times out of 10, they're more than happy to have these guys around so they can learn from them. But I do like the fact that NASCAR has put the limit in through it to where it's, what is going to be 8 races if you've had more than 5 years in full-time in Cup.
I thought it was 7.
Is it 7 then? Yeah,
Yep.
I don't remember. It was 10 this year, right? And they've dropped it down to 7.
Right. And I think it's 5 in the trucks.
I thought for people over 5 years that they couldn't run in the trucks. I could have that wrong. I mean, it was all kind of confusing when I read it, and I was just like, to me, it's just the wrong way to go about it.
Cup Series drivers with 5+ years of experience are now limited to 7 Xfinity Series races and 5 Truck Series races. All drivers earning Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series points are barred from the Xfinity and Truck Series regular season finale and playoff races. And they're also barred from the Dash for Cash races.
And I mean, the article, the guy that spoke for NASCAR, Jim Cassidy, somebody I know, I am going to try and get a hold of him when we get to Kansas City and just talk to him and say, look, let the guys run all the races they want. Don't take the money out of the series. Don't let them run for the owner's points.
I know fans are cussing at NASCAR because they're sick and tired of seeing Kyle Busch win. And again, I call it the Kyle Busch rule because if Dale Jr. goes down there and wins 10 Xfinity races a year, nobody cares. Nobody's going to say anything.
A lot of people don't understand when they're making these gripes. These top names got to be in these cars for the sponsor contracts.
Yeah.
A sponsor's not going to say, well, I want Jim Smith out of Kansas City. Well, what's he race? A hobby stocker. Oh, well, so where do you want him to run? Well, Daytona.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's not going to happen.
Look at Monster Energy. It's now the title sponsorship for NASCAR. Guess where that came from? Kyle Busch racing in the Xfinity Series. And I think they might have sponsored his trucks for a couple of races.
Off and on.
They sponsored Kyle when he was in that car. They didn't sponsor anybody else. When Kurt Busch lost his ride at Penske and he went over and raced for Phoenix Racing, they stepped up and sponsored Kurt, and it grew from there. Where would that sponsorship be if NASCAR would have said no Cup Series drivers gets to go down and race in the Xfinity Series? Because like you were just saying, that sponsorship opportunity that Kyle Busch went and got wouldn't be there. All right, that's going to do it for our show today. We appreciate everybody tuning in. Remember, next weekend we'll be live again from Knoxville. We'll get you interviews with the top couple of finishers. Can't really say exactly how many. I think they send the top 3 to the media center. But we'll try to get as many as possible for your interview pleasure. We'll also get you updated on the racing at I-80 Speedway on Friday night and the Saturday night action at Eagle Raceway with Stan Caesar joining us. Actually, there's not going to be racing on Friday night at I-80, so we'll just do Saturday night at Eagle, and then we'll get you set for the races to come. Again, coverage today for Watkins Glen starts at 1 o'clock with the green flag waving just after 2 p.m. Coverage is on NBCSN and MRN. Also qualifying set to take off here in about an hour as the show wraps up. For Dirk Houston, I'm Dan Taylor. This has been The Front Stretch presented by Joe's Karting on AM 590, Omaha's ESPN Radio.
The official watering hole of The Front Stretch has you covered any day of the week with the best wings, great burgers, and amazing steaks. Each weekday from 4 to 6 is happy hour, featuring $1 off draft and well drinks plus $4 Luberitas. Mondays are kids' night. Tuesdays are all-you-can-eat wings for $12.95, and the lube even delivers to the Council Bluffs area. Like Quaker Steak and Lube Council Bluffs on Facebook for a full list of weekly events.
Get to Quaker Steak and Lube.
Mid-America Drive, Council Bluffs.
Are you looking to book your next outing? Look no further than Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs. Located just north of Bass Pro Shop, Joe's Karting can handle outings of well over 100+ people. Bachelor parties, corporate outings, team building, birthday parties, and much more. Give Buddy a call today and reserve your outing. Joe's will even work with local restaurants to cater your event. Book yours today at joeskarting.com. That's karting with a K. It's time to get to Joe's and find out what everyone already knows.
This has been the Front Stretch Radio Show, presented by Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs. To contact Dan or Dirk, find them on Facebook at The Front Stretch or email them at frontstretch590@gmail.com. If you missed any part of today's show or want to hear a previous show, subscribe to the Joe's Karting YouTube page, where you can find almost every Front Stretch show.